Plan B is generally to improvise. Ian smiled weakly. Oh, good. Improvising has worked so well for us so far. The shuttle sputtered one last time as they neared the station. With a shudder that rattled every bolt in the frame, the engines died, and they coasted the last few hundred meters in a long downward arc. Soft landing! Soft landing! Ian chanted hopefully as Arashia wrestled the controls. The shuttle hit the ground with a screech and a lurch that sent both of them bouncing out of their seats. Ian let out a high-pitched squeal that he would later deny ever making. When the dust finally settled, they staggered to their feet, bruised but alive. Technically, Ian wheezed, still a landing. Technically, Arashia agreed, brushing herself off. The relay station loomed ahead, a gleaming needle of ancient technology, stubbornly refusing to fall like the rest of Velmara. It pulsed faintly with internal power, a heartbeat in the dead landscape. They approached cautiously. Ian kept scanning the surrounding ruins, half expecting the monster to leap out at any moment, dripping fangs and bad intentions. Instead, the area remained eerily still. At the base of the tower, they found a maintenance hatch. Arashia produced her multi-tool again, working the lock with deft precision. Ian leaned against the wall, trying to look casual, and immediately yelped as the panel he touched gave way and dumped a small, angry maintenance drone onto his foot. "Gah! Evil Roomba! Evil Roomba!" he shouted, kicking it away. The drone buzzed indignantly and zipped off into the ruins. Arashia quirked a brow at him. Fearsome opponent. "I let it win," Ian muttered, limping after her. Inside, the relay station's core chamber was a marvel of lost engineering, a spiraling cathedral of light and glass, conduits weaving upward like vines toward a suspended data core that floated in magnetic suspension. Arashia crossed the chamber without hesitation, accessing a console built into the wall. She plugged in the salvage data cube from the outpost, fingers flying over the unfamiliar interface. Holographic screens blossomed into the air, filled with streams of Velmaran script. Ian stared at them. Yup, totally fluent in ancient space gibberish. Arashia didn't glance up. It is not gibberish. It is the code of my ancestors. He mock saluted. Respectfully noted, I'll just stand over here and not break anything. Data scrolled rapidly across the displays. Arashia's eyes narrowed. There's something here, she said. Old transmission logs. Hidden files. Ian leaned closer. Secrets? I love secrets, especially the kind that don't immediately try to kill me. As she decrypted the files, an image flared to life. A map of Velmara, but overlaid with strange nodes and pathways Ian didn't recognize. What's that? He asked. Escape routes, Arashia said slowly. Safe houses. Old evacuation plans. My people were preparing for the worst. Ian's brow furrowed. But they didn't make it. No. Her voice was tight. But maybe some did. A beacon pulsed on the map, buried deep beneath the mountains. A place the creature hadn't found. A last hope. Before Ian could respond, a sharp, shuddering boom echoed through the station. They froze. The walls vibrated faintly. Another boom. Louder. Closer. Ian's voice was a strained whisper. Tell me that's just the shuttle falling apart. Arashia's hand went to her sidearm. It is not. The creature had found them. Of course it had. Ian exhaled shakily. Plan B? Arashia's eyes flashed with fierce determination. We fight. We run. We survive. Ian gave a wild, breathless laugh. Good plan. Very inspirational. I give it 4 stars. The wall shook again. Dust rained from the ceiling. The monster's roar split the air. Impossibly close now, a sound of rage and hunger sharpened by unnatural intelligence. And still, even facing the apocalypse yet again, Ian couldn't resist a grin. You know, he said as they braced themselves, for a rescue mission, this has been weirdly on brand for my life. Arashia simply smiled back, sharp and fierce and ready. Together they turned to meet whatever nightmare came crashing through the walls. The wall didn't shatter so much as unmake itself, folding outward like a piece of paper given up on reality. Through the swirling dust and fractured light, the creature stepped in, if one could call that motion a step. It didn't walk so much as ripple into the room, every joint bending in ways nature should have vetoed at the prototype stage. Ian, weapon drawn but clearly out of his depth, stared at it. Okay, that's... I don't even know which part of that is supposed to be the face or the butt, and I do not want to know if it has more than one of either. The creature responded by letting out a shriek that hit frequencies only dogs, and apparently Ian's molars could fully appreciate. Araja stepped in front of him, drawing her sleek plasma pistol, her long ears angling downward in irritation. It is projecting dominance, she said. Ian blinked. I mean, it's working. I feel very dominated. They backed toward the central relay platform, the data core humming faintly behind them. The relay station wasn't built for firefights. There were no blast doors, no security drones, not even a single SAT emergency turret that might fire a stern warning shot. Apparently, Velmoran engineers had not anticipated nightmare beasts with reality-bending biology crashing their communication parties. Arasha fired first, 3 sharp plasma bursts that streaked across the room and struck the creature's carapace with a hiss of seared fluid. It staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, it split, literally, its torso peeling open like a nightmare flower, revealing a pulsing core of glowing tissue that pulsed like a heartbeat. Ian screamed, "Nope! Nope! That's a second mouth! That's too many mouths!" The creature lunged. Arisha grabbed Ian's arm and shoved him sideways, both of them tumbling across the smooth floor as a clawed limb crashed down where they just stood. The floor cracked, spiderweb fractures racing across its surface like fleeing insects. They scrambled to their feet, darting between columns of alien circuitry and strange crystalline conduits that lit up at their passing. "Do you have a plan?" Ian panted. "I am developing one as we run," Araja replied, firing over her shoulder. A blast clipped the creature's leg. It hissed and wobbled, but kept coming. "Oh, good," Ian said. "My favorite kind of plan, desperate and undercooked." Then something clicked. Not inside the relay station, but in Ian's head. "The beacon," he gasped. "The map, Arasha, that escape route, the one in the mountains." She glanced at him. "The hidden facility. You believe it still functions?" "Nope. But I'd rather die in a long-lost alien bunker than here, in a space cathedral with a murder octopus yelling at me." "Fair." She grabbed his hand again, an instinct she hadn't questioned since the outpost, and pulled him down a side corridor just as the creature's claw sliced through the main chamber behind them. They ran. Lights flared overhead, reacting to their movement. Doors slid open just in time. One closed behind them a second before the creature slammed into it, the impact shuddering through the walls. Ian didn't stop running. "Did you see that thing's elbow bend backward? Backward. That is not an elbow. That is a crime." "Focus," Arasha snapped, though her breath came just as fast as his. "We must reach the auxiliary launch bay. Do we even have a ship left?" "Something will fly," she said. "If not, you may flap your arms." They burst into the bay, half collapsed, mostly looted, with only one remaining vessel wedged against a loading dock. It looked like a shipping drone that had been repurposed, forgotten, and possibly insulted by time itself. Ian stared. "That is not a spaceship. That's a soda can with wings." Araja was already climbing into the cockpit. "Soda cans can be surprisingly aerodynamic." "I hate that I believe you," he muttered, scrambling in behind her. The controls lit up with a low, uncertain hum, as if even the ship wasn't convinced this was a good idea. Panels flickered. A startup sequence wheezed into life. From somewhere inside, a mechanical voice stuttered through static. "Welcome to error. Launch sequence incomplete. Please refrain from panicking." "I can't even not panic in a complete launch sequence," Ian shouted. Behind them, the doors buckled. A shriek reverberated down the hall. Arasha's fingers flew over the controls. She reached behind the panel and yanked 2 wires together. There was a flash, a crackle, and suddenly the engines roared to life. The doors exploded inward just as the ship lifted off. The creature hurled itself forward, claws catching the rear of the vessel, but not quite. With a shriek of overtaxed engines and ancient metal, the ship shot through the bay doors, leaving the monster behind in a growing cloud of smoke and fury. They were airborne, barely. The ship wobbled like a drunken insect. Ian glanced sideways. "Are we going to die?" "Possibly," Arasha said, grim but steady. "But with style." Ian leaned back, trying not to notice the sparks coming from under his seat. "Well, if this thing falls out of the sky, at least I'll die somewhere interesting." Araja actually smiled at that. And we have a heading now. The mountains. She adjusted the ship's course, locking on to the hidden coordinates from the data core. Outside, the broken world of Velmara passed beneath them, ancient and angry and waiting. I just realized, Ian said after a moment, you saved my life at the outpost. Now I've saved yours. So we're even. Statistically, Araja said, you still owe me 2.5 rescues. Ian considered this. What happens when I hit 0? You may receive a medal or a sarcastic poem. We Velmarans are unpredictable that way. He grinned despite everything. I think I like your people. They would have liked you too, she said softly, not looking at him. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Full of possibilities neither of them had dared to entertain until now. And somewhere ahead, buried beneath the mountains, something waited. A forgotten facility. A last hope. Maybe even a clue about the monster that stalked them, and what it really wanted. But for now they flew. 2 unlikely survivors in a sputtering tin can, heading into the unknown, with no guarantees except that, whatever happened next, it wouldn't be boring. The mountains reared up like sleeping giants, scarred with forgotten wars and freckled with domes of alien stone. Araja guided the battered vessel through a narrow pass, the ship protesting every twist of her hands like a reluctant mule. Below them, avalanches stirred in the shadows. Above, the pale sun of Velmara hung low, casting copper light over jagged ridges. Tell me again how this hidden facility won't just fall on our heads the moment we land, Ian muttered, eyeing the instruments as if they owed him reassurance. Because, Araja said, Velmaran architecture is elegant, enduring, and built to survive orbital bombardment. The ship's floor let out a metallic clunk. Ian glanced down. That wasn't an elegant sound. It was more of a defiant sound, Araja corrected, easing the ship toward a landing plateau half buried beneath ice and stone. Like an old warrior clearing his throat. The ship skidded onto the platform with all the grace of a shopping cart on ice, grinding to a halt just shy of a yawning abyss. Everything went silent. The engines wheezed. A panel dropped from the ceiling and clattered at Ian's feet. Well, he said, stepping out, at least it didn't explode. That's progress. Araja followed, scanning the surroundings. The platform stretched into a hidden ridge, half swallowed by time. She tapped a control on her wrist. A faint blue glow shimmered along the stone, geometric patterns flaring to life, revealing a door. Velmaran, ancient, and still listening. Did I ever mention how creepy your technology is? Ian said. You've mentioned it 74 times, she said, placing her palm against the glowing seal. But you also keep following it, so I assume your fear is manageable. The door split open with a soft hiss. They entered a long corridor of polished obsidian, the air still and dry. Lights flickered on, following their steps. The silence felt less like abandonment and more like anticipation. I expected dust, Ian whispered. Spiderwebs. Maybe a skeleton or two. My people preferred to die somewhere less dramatic, Araja said. At the corridor's end stood a chamber, wide, circular, filled with consoles humming quietly, waiting for touch. A single dais rose in the center, surrounded by projection pillars. As Araja stepped into the space, the chamber responded. Light burst from the dais. A hologram flickered into place. A Velmaran woman in ceremonial armor, ears long and proud, her face serene. Welcome, descendants, the recording began. If you have found this place, then Velmara has fallen. Our final weapon has been released. Ian leaned in. Weapon? The hologram continued. The obelisk, our answer to extinction. A synthetic predator designed to consume invasive biomass. But we failed to contain it. It did not recognize allies, only threats. It turned on us. We fled, and we sealed this place, hoping one day someone would stop it. The image dissolved. Araja stood in silence, her gaze distant. Then she stepped forward, activating another console. Blueprints flickered in the air. Schematics, coordinates, biological scans. Ian squinted at them, recognizing the shape of the monster they'd fled. Okay, he said slowly. So this thing was a super guard dog that went full Cujo? Araja nodded grimly. It is drawn to communication signals, conflict, even panic. A predator of patterns. And we've been broadcasting like idiots, Ian added. She didn't argue. Wait, he said, pointing. That's a kill switch? A blinking node in the projection pulsed faintly. A resonance key, she said, buried in the mountains. It can trigger a feedback in the obelisk's neural web, disarm it or destroy it. Please tell me it doesn't involve crawling into a volcano. No volcanoes, she said. Just an ancient elevator shaft, a few miles of ice tunnels, and several extremely optimistic guesses. He stared. Oh, perfect. Just a casual suicide hike. I didn't pack snacks. The descent was cold, narrow, and profoundly inconvenient. They climbed through collapsed tunnels, crossed bridges that groaned under their weight, and finally reached the chamber, a deep, humming vault of light and cables. The resonance key sat in the center, guarded not by traps but by silence. Stillness, a kind of sacred waiting. As Araja approached, Ian stood back. You sure about this? No, she said, but I've spent my whole life trying to fix what my ancestors broke. If this gives Velmara another chance, not just to survive, but to change, then yes. She pressed her palm to the key. It lit up. High above them, in some distant valley, the obelisk screamed. The vault shook. Lights flared. The kill signal burst from the vault in a ripple of invisible energy, streaking through the mountain, the air, the world. When it was done, the silence returned. But this time it felt like peace. 2 weeks later, Ian sat on a hilltop under Velmara's twin moons, chewing a flavorless ration bar and watching a shuttle descend. Araja stood beside him, her armor cleaner now, her posture straighter, but her eyes still carried the weight of everything they'd seen. Reinforcements, she said. My people are sending researchers, planners, builders. No more doomsday monsters, though? He asked, mouth full. She smirked. Only mildly dangerous ones, and better labeled. They sat in silence a while. Ian nudged her. You ever think about Earth? She tilted her head. Often. Your species is loud, chaotic, and entirely obsessed with cheese. Hey, cheese is emotional architecture. She chuckled softly, the sound genuine. You could return, you know. He looked out at the purple horizon. I could, but I think I found something here. She looked at him. He didn't explain. He didn't have to. And under the fading sky, with Velmara slowly stirring back to life beneath their feet, Araja reached out, not for her weapon, not for a tool, but for his hand. This time he didn't hesitate. They faced forward together, two pieces from different puzzles who'd found, against all odds, that they fit. And above them, the stars blinked quietly, less like watchers and more like winks from a universe that still believed in second chances.